How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. This is the show where you can ask anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language, and so what we're doing here today is answering your questions, giving you a place where you can ask your questions without being worried that you're going to get roasted or ridiculed or anything like that. Everybody is welcome here, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, something in between, or something on the outskirts. This is not a show for people to fight and debate each other. Good morning to you, too, as well, JP. No, excuse me. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. So, regardless of how simple or complicated your question is, what's up, Italiana? Good to see you again. You can ask it here. No one's going to make fun of you. If I can't answer your question, I promise I'm not going to make something up. I promise I will tell you if I don't know things. But if you don't have to worry about if it's a simple question, no one's going to make fun of you for being uninformed or call you stupid or anything like that. Nobody gets owned on this show. Nobody gets debated. Nobody gets roasted. This is not a show for me to prove how much smarter I am than everybody. This is just good faith engagement in politics because of the way that our media diet works these days, everybody's got a different idea of what's going on in the country. And it's like, how can we solve these problems if we can't even agree what the problems are? How can we start to make everybody's lives better if we can't even agree on whose lives need to be better? And how we do that is like the next step of the game. So we don't do debates here. We don't do fighting. We don't do name calling. We just do good faith engagement. JP says, so I can't say George Lucas ripped off the Hidden Fortress and made a worse movie? Question mark. I suppose you could say something like that. Yeah, that's part of the Star Wars zeitgeist that I am unfamiliar with. I know the movie Hidden Fortress. I've never tried to compare it to Episode 4, but I'm interested. My wife's a big Star Wars fan, so maybe she's got thoughts on that. Anyways, back to politics, everybody. Get any questions about politics? Just let me know. Al Bundy, 495. Good lord, what a reference, Al Bundy. Good lord. Someone's gonna come in with a screen name Alf420 soon. And yeah, Al Bundy is as hilarious, and as much as I appreciate that reference, being a 90s kid myself, that is not a question about politics. So yeah, any questions about politics, just put them in the chat and we'll get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I don't care. Croc says, do you know the... No, I do not know what that lore is, Crux. So sorry about that. Yeah, a lot of non-political questions so far for my live stream about politics. But until we get like a tipping point of people who are in the chat, we will probably continue to have what do you call it, tangential questions. A couple of ice cube emojis says, "Do you believe in God?" Not particularly. I think that the universe is weird and unknowable. There are more things between heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophies ratio, that kind of thing. I was raised Catholic. I don't really truck with organized religion these days, though. Ice says, then you must be a Democrat. Yeah, but plenty of Democrats believe in God. There are plenty of Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Jewish Democrats. Connor says, thoughts on Dairy Queen's chicken tenders? Also, not a political question. Fortnite Penis 69 says, have you seen The Age of Disclosure? Thoughts on Rubio? I have not seen that. So Rubio, he sucks. Like he's a piece of shit. The dude gave up on all of his principles just so that he could have more power and influence. And I can't prove that he was blowing rails during that one press conference, but he sure fucking looked like it. User a bunch of numbers says, at this point of crime, would you be okay with the military in the streets? Oh, no, absolutely not. No, the military is not trained for law enforcement. Simon says, what do you think adds the most to the national debt? Tax cuts for the rich. And it's been 4 minutes, and I have been reported for harassment and bullying, and I'm dumbfounded. I am like, what in the world are you guys talking about? Would someone like to tell me who reported me for harassment? and bullying, and then maybe you could also let me know what I did exactly that was harassment and bullying, because it's kind of bullshit. You have to admit this is bullshit. Whoever it was that did this. Good afternoon to you, John Selfridge. Playing caretaker for my wife. Well, I hope that your wife is doing okay, my guy. She's doing well after 2 weeks in the hospital, taking a break. Do you agree with me that organized religion is perhaps the biggest scam ever perpetuated on humanity? I mean, there are definitely people who treat religion like a scam. They treat it like a way to get money and power. But there is value to religion. I believe. I think there's plenty of evidence of that. Whether religion has been a net positive or negative, I don't really care for wading into that debate. Um, but yeah, there are definitely issues. But I also think that part of the reason why we have a loneliness epidemic right now is because of the decrease in participation in organized religion. Now, I think if we're going to have a more secular, populace here in America, then we would be well. We would it would be beneficial for us to start doing something to recreate the social element of going to church. And so, I don't necessarily know what that solution is, but something would be nice. I don't think that we need to put up with all of the negative things in religion just so that people can be more social. But it was a nice thing that people had a place to go and talk to people. Okay, TJ Spriggs says, are both parties controlled by big insurance? No, there are people in both parties controlled by big insurance. But if you want to know, is there a difference between how Democrats regulate insurance industries and Republicans do? There is a massive difference. And Republicans do way more work for the insurance companies, and Democrats do more work to protect the citizens from the insurance companies. Jack Rafferty says, liberal views are just wrong. I don't agree with that, Jack. Would you like to be more specific, or are you literally just here to cast aspersions? Simon, thank you for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day, buddy. I really appreciate that. Okay, Hoyt Edit says, what are your opinions on the mass deportations? So it's an interesting question, because the idea of mass deportations is not necessarily bad in and of itself. If we have the infrastructure and we know where all the people that we need to deport are, and we give every one of those people due process, then that's fine. I don't know what qualifies as mass deportation versus regular deportation, but I guess it's just a lot of deportation. And so if we do it in a humane and legal way, then it's completely fine. The problem is that is not what the Trump administration is doing. They are denying people their due process. They're violating their human rights, and they are making tons of mistakes. In the chasing the goal of doing mass deportations means that we need to be detaining and deporting veterans, citizens, people with legal status, people who are quote unquote trying to come here the right way, people who are on their way to their immigration hearing to be naturalized and then getting deported. No, that's illegal. It's barbaric. It's not solving whatever problem mass deportations is trying to solve. It's literally it's just bad. It's just bad from top to bottom. Jack Rafferty says, how do you feel that crime rates are at an all-time low ever since Trump's been eliminating immigrants? So he's not been eliminating immigrants, Jack Rafferty. That's not what you're advocating for, right, Jack? That's kind of monstrous if you're saying that Trump has been pew-pewing immigrants and unaliving them. But yeah, I don't really trust this government on their data, because they have been we've caught them doctoring data, and so I don't really know where you're getting your numbers as far as record low crime rates, but I don't buy it. Ghostface says, what's your political ideology? I'm a centrist. What about you? I'm a progressive Democrat. And I would love to get more into your political ideology, Ghostface. Maybe we can come to some sort of agreement about what's good, what's bad, stuff like that. Simon says, how concerning are Trump's statements about his third term and suppression in First Amendment rights. So it's all concerning. Whether or not he gets away with it is an open question. You know, him saying it means that he's going to try. And that just means that we are going to have to fight against that. And fighting means protesting, boycotting, striking, voting, political organizing, political pressure on your elected representatives, you know, stuff like that. We just all have to do the work, you know, otherwise he's going to get away with it. Okay, V08 says 11 million in 4 years under Biden, only 400K deported. He's failing. Trump is failing. Yes, I agree with that. Veru Kazalt says Trump gave Ghislaine better prison accommodations for keeping her mouth shut. That seems to be accurate. Good to see you again, John. Thank you so much for being here. Average Joe, I hope that you also have an awesome new year. Okay, Jack Rafferty says, numbers come from Dylan Page, biggest news in the world on TikTok. Really cool guy. Check him out. I don't buy that, Jack. Just based on your behavior in my live stream, I don't buy that this guy, Dylan Page, is a good guy. Ghostface says, I agree Trump isn't doing good and doing worse than his first term. I just want his BBB to do something good. I mean, it's not going to. The big, beautiful bill, as it's called, is just a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. So why would you call yourself a centrist and not a Democrat, Ghostface? Really curious about that. Bonezone says, why are blanket deportations good? They're not. Latavius Harold says, is it okay if I open a daycare in Minnesota and make millions? Latavius, do you also have a problem with other frauds that happens? Is it just Minnesota, or do you also have a problem with, for example, Trump's charity stealing money from kids with cancer, or Senator Rick Scott stealing money from Medicaid? I'm just curious what your specific issue is with the daycare scandal in Minnesota, because people are calling it the Somali Tim Walz scandal, but it really is just like one white lady. Oh, you love that. Okay, cool. Rock and roll, man. Henry says, why isn't anybody being held accountable for the theft and fraud discovered by Doge? Because they didn't find any theft and fraud, Henry. Doge was a scam. We are spending more in the government now than before, so it wasn't for cost cutting. They shut down organizations that were investigating Elon Musk companies. It was specifically for the benefit of him and his rich buddies. Okay, Ghost says, because I also hold a couple of right-wing positions as well, like pro-life, Second Amendment, etc. Okay, I feel you on that. Do you feel like there are any states that are run by Democrats, Ghostface, that you think have the kind of like gun restrictions that you think would be bad for the nation in general? Because oftentimes when I hear people complaining, or not complaining, but saying that they are Republican or centrist because they believe in the Second Amendment, that's when I go, well, the Democrats have never like tried to undo the Second Amendment or even take people's guns away. They just want to have like, you know, universal background checks and maybe a ban on assault weapons and maybe mandatory insurance for people that have guns and stuff like that. I find those to be pretty, you know, nominal gun restrictions that everybody who wants a gun should be able to maintain. And, you know, there are people who will say that, well, you know, gun laws are more, you know, they're stricter in blue states than they are in red states. And I'm like, okay, but people still have lots of guns in blue states. So I guess, like, you know, if the national policy on guns was what the policy was in New York or California, like, would that really be that much worse? You know? Okay, VO8 says Trump's downfall, lack of deportations, and owned by Israel. I mean, there's a lot of things that could potentially be Trump's downfall. I don't know if that is all-encompassing, you know? Yeah, we're coming up on my 10-minute ban that's been instituted because I was quote-unquote harassing and bullying somebody. And so we'll see if my numbers start to go up, but if not, you know, what are you going to do? Ghostface, I don't know if you're responding to my comments or not, or if they're getting blocked or whatever, but yeah, just let me know. Jack Rafferty says, one of the most followed people on TikTok gives real statistics. You don't want to admit it. Yeah, I'm not just here to let you spam the comments, my guy. Simon says, do you think impeachment might come for Trump? If Democrats take over the House in 2026, then Trump is 100% getting impeached. If they don't, he won't. And I think that's instructive, you know? Like, some people will look at that data and they'll go, oh, that means that the Democrats are going to impeach Trump no matter what he does. But I think it's clear that he's done wildly impeachable things already in his second term. So it seems much more likely that the reason why he's going to get impeached if Democrats take the House is because he should be getting impeached right now. And it's just that Republicans won't impeach a president of their own party, which is, in my opinion, completely disqualifying. Like, I'm not voting for a Republican ever again if you are not going to hold people accountable for their crimes just because they're in your party. Okay, Average Joe says if illegal immigration is the issue, then what is the right wing argument against expanding the immigration courts to unclog the system? Unless the cruelty is the intent. You know the answer to that question, Average Joe. The cruelty is the intent. V08 says those are the two that Republicans cite and won't show up at the polls. Oh, gotcha. The lack of deportations and being owned by Israel. It's interesting. VO8. I heard that the guy with the island and the plane is also kind of a part of that, but I could be wrong. That just seems like also could be potentially detrimental. Ghostface, still waiting for your response. Are you hitting me up and your comments are getting blocked or something? Let me know, man. I really want to get into this stuff with you, my guy. What I find is that people that describe themselves as centrist or independents, they generally have I think, an unfair view of what the Democratic Party is, what their platform is, and I believe that the party does represent your beliefs as well. It's just that you've been, misinformed about what Democrats would do in power. So yeah, we can get into pro-life, we can get into Second Amendment. Just let me know, man. Okay, Sleepless says, are the buyouts of studios by streaming services political? I mean, in one sense, they are. The guy that owns Paramount has been a big Trump supporter for a long time. And so Trump could potentially try to put his finger on the scale to swing that merger in one direction or the other. But all of these, people who own these giant businesses, they know that Trump is corrupt. And so they just go and, grease his palm or kiss his ass, and then they can hopefully get their merger agreed to, whatever. It's all part of the same shit. Space Plum says, yeah, I have no question today. Trump just pisses me off that much, so I'll just sit back, chill, and listen. Thanks for the insight, Jarrett. You are welcome, my guy. All right, so TikTok, I am going to stop and then restart my live stream because, again, I was unfairly flagged for harassment and bullying. So all 23 of you people who are currently here, please come back immediately once I restart my stream. Again, this would not be necessary if people did not falsely accuse me of doing bullying. Mac Gulu says, why does Venezuela build a pipeline through the Colombia to the Pacific Sea? That I don't know about. All right, see you guys soon on TikTok. Come back. All right, so I got 4 new followers. That's pretty nice. Okay. All right, we are back on TikTok, everybody. Space Plum, great to see you. Yeah, I never have to restart on Twitch or YouTube because I guess I don't have a big enough audience to attract the kind of people that will just, block me or, flag me for harassment for no fucking reason. All right, welcome everybody. Kimberlina, hello. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. My name is Jarrett, and I answer questions about politics. There's no bullying here. There's no harassment. There's no fighting. There's no roasting. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So this is the place where you can ask all of those questions without fear of judgment. Maybe there's a question you've always wanted to ask, but you were worried it would make you sound like a MAGA person. Doesn't matter. Ask your MAGA question. No one's going to yell at you. No one's going to call you a fascist or anything like that. Maybe there's always been a question you wanted to ask, but you've always worried it would make you sound like some sort of soft libtard. You can ask those questions here. No one's going to call you a cuck or nothing, or a beta male. Everybody is welcome here. This is not a place for fighting. This is not a place for roasting. This is not a place for debating. Nobody gets bullied here. Nobody gets harassed. Kimberlina says, curious what conservatives watch on TV. I feel like all good shows, movies would be labeled as woke. I feel like there's the cognitive dissonance that people sort of like allow themselves to do where they enjoy certain media. Like Ben Shapiro just did a thing about how in It's a Wonderful Life, the evil, corrupt banker was actually right. And, similarly, they will watch, the Colbert Report and be like, oh, this is hilarious. They're making fun of somebody who's not me. they'll watch Star Wars and think that they're the rebels and that Democrats are the empire. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, it's cognitive dissonance 24/7. Riff Raff says, would you rather have a president who's 4'9" but has a 10-foot vertical? That's not really the kind of question I answer, Riff Raff. User 848 says they watch Fox News primarily. Well, I think we were talking about like entertainment, you know, like what movies and, you know, sitcoms do they watch. All right, everybody, thank you so much for the questions. We are here doing the live stream, answering questions about politics. If you got any questions about politics, let me know. Sleepless says, I compare the studio bio to a quote from a Pixar movie. Which quotes? Sleepless, let me know. I'm really curious. So yeah, any questions about politics, just let me know. And when everyone's super, no one will be. Interesting. I'm not really sure how that fits there. Maybe I'm dense today. All right, everybody. Everybody is welcome here. Republicans, Democrat, everything in between and everything on the outskirts. User says, why aren't vets upset about the short-staffed VA? I'm sure that they are. You know, I don't know who is reporting on that. I know it from The Incredibles, Kimberly, and I just don't know how it relates to the merger. You know, let's see here. Yeah, I'm sure they're pissed. You know, farmers are pissed. Veterans are pissed. The Doge Commission represented the largest firing of veterans in American history, and so yeah, they're fucking pissed as hell, man. I have to assume. Scottus says, what is the real reason Republicans are against abortion? They want people desperate. They want people trapped, raising children that they are not financially able to take care of, so that they will be too busy to vote, strike, protest, get an education, etc. They will have to take whatever jobs they can to survive. That is the entire sort of like super objective for every billionaire and Republican, is to try to make life harder for everybody that isn't them, so that they can sort of like rule us and be the new kings and queens. Mr. Mesozoic says, ask me anything about liberalism. No, you can ask me anything about anything, Mr. Mesozoic. Okay, let's see here. Larry says they believe it's murder. Some of them do, but some of them really don't give a shit. Some of them really just want you to be desperate. If they really cared about stopping abortion, then they would do things that actually stop abortion, like sex education and access to contraception and family planning and raising the minimum wage and free childcare and stuff like that. Why don't we do more to prevent accidental pregnancy, and why don't we do more to make it so that people with children aren't living in poverty? The answer is that Republicans want there to be accidental pregnancies. They want people to have to raise children that they cannot, so that they will be desperate. You know, when you are sexually harassing somebody that works for you, what you want is for them to be too busy to talk to a lawyer. And that is one example of the Republican billionaire ethos around abortion bans. Egbert the Wise says, what political party do you think Goku would be a part of? He's a good guy, so he'd be a Democrat. User a bunch of numbers says they want women at home, straddled with kids, not in public spaces. That's also part of it. You know, where everything in the Republican and billionaire sphere is, there is always a little bit of racism and misogyny sprinkled in there. David says, what is your opinion on communism and socialism? You know, David, I guess it really just depends on how you define those terms. I define communism as the workers owning the means of production. So every company that is employee owned, like Publix grocery stores or Bob's Red Mill, is communism. And socialism, I define as government programs. You know, that's why we call universal health care socialized medicine, because we are all paying into it with our tax dollars, and then we are all getting the benefit of having access to universal health care. Now, there are other people who have different definitions of socialism and communism, but that's how I define them. And that's the reason why I also advocate for those things. I think we do need socialized healthcare and socialized college and potentially socialized housing. And I think that we should be doing more to incentivize companies to be employee owned, because that is a great way to eliminate the massive income inequality that we have right now and eliminate poverty. What's up to you, Willie? Good to see you again. Rav says, what's your opinion on the Somali situation in Minnesota? The situation as you describe it, Rav, is basically a propaganda campaign by the billionaire class and the Republican Party. Like, Somali immigrants in Minnesota are a benefit. And, the fact that there's this scandal involving daycare centers that was run by a white lady is somehow being called the Tim Walz Somali scandal is just hardcore right-wing propaganda. And to the people who are really upset about that, I would ask them, are you equally upset about Trump and his kids stealing money from a cancer charity? Are you equally upset about Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, stealing money from Medicaid? Like, those are also scandals. Those are also fraud that stole taxpayer dollars. Sayerdra says, what do you think about Fortnite? I tried playing it once. I couldn't figure it out, and then I stopped. Singh says, what do you think of Carney versus Pierre? Don't know anything about that. Scott says Gaston is Disney's RFK. That's pretty funny. User 1579 says, do you think Stacey Abrams could rise as Democratic nominee for 28? Potentially. I'm not really sure what she's been up to ever since she tried to run for governor. I know that she has Fair Fight, which is a great organization that everybody should be supporting, of course. Yeah, I think she's great, and I wish her the best no matter what she tries to achieve going forward. Muralist Digital says, was the Charlie K Pew Pew an inside job? I don't think so. Thank you, Muzz King, Triska, and D Scott for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Evan Max says, do you fish? I did a little bit when I was a kid, but I haven't in a while. Jordan Gallagher says, what do you think of the US dollar dropping 10% since Trump took office? I mean, anybody could have predicted this. If he was going to do the things that he said he was going to do, then the value of the dollar was going to plummet, and it has. Elo Local says, where do you stand ideological-wise? I'm a progressive Democrat. Sleepless says, thoughts on Stone and Parker's recent season? So my patience for South Park has kind of tanked as I've gotten older. I used to love them. Yeah, I'm glad that they're at least on the right side of these issues. I've only seen like clips of, like the various things. And so I hope that it's annoying. I hope it is annoying the Trump administration and all of the pieces of shit they're in. Big Tooth Gary says, Jay doesn't like the smell of fish. No, I like the smell of fish. It's pretty good. Martin McClear says, is all political ideologically flawed? I don't think so. When you're dealing with systems that try to make life better for billions of people, there are going to be things that fall through the cracks. And so the project of humanity should be in creating a system where everybody can have a good life that is filled with the, necessities, pursuit of happiness, housing, shelter, food, hierarchy of needs, kind of shit, stuff like that. Cohen says, do you personally think that people have any say in national policy? Yeah, we do. We vote for the people that make the decisions. And if they don't make the decisions that we like, then we vote them out of office. Jack says, yesterday when I mentioned Somali daycare fraud, it may have struck a nerve. Can you go into your overall thoughts on it? Are you upset? Is there any fraud? Let me know. Thanks, Jared. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, the thing that upsets me about it is the framing of it. This is an issue that has been going on for a long time, but because the Republican Party wants to hurt Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar and generally wants to scapegoat immigrants in this country, they are sort of like hyping this issue that is largely being handled. Like the white woman who's responsible for it is in jail. There has been tons of this fraud all over the country in all different states, red, white, red, blue, and purple. But yet, for some reason, the Republican Party is laser focused on making this seem like the biggest issue that our country is facing, and is telling people the reason why you can't afford to live is because of Somalis in Minnesota, when also it was a white lady that perpetuated the whole thing. Like, it's just it's straight up propaganda. Like, it is not. Like, there was fraud, 100%, but the whole thing was run by a white lady who is currently in jail. And I believe she did hire some Somali immigrants to help her do her scheme. And, that's not really an excuse. I believe you can still go to jail for accessory for that sort of thing. But this was not, caused by the Somali population. This was not caused by Democrats like Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar. Let me know what you think about that, Jack. Is any of this stuff? Jack says, do you know who the white woman is? I forget what her name is. It's on my Discord actually. My one of my regulars just posted a big update about it, and so there's some really great information there. Link is in the bio. Mr. Fixit says, just remember the traffic at the Berlin Wall only went one way. Not really sure what that means. Jacob says, please let me debate you. Maybe. I'm really mercurial about letting people up. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So if you stick around, then maybe you'll get lucky. I see your request. We'll see how this live goes. Poop Man says, should Amano shrimp import from Asia be more or less regulated? I don't know too much about that. Red Vixen says, Walz was in on it and Ilhan. That is a lie, Red Vixen. So start asking questions or you will get booted. Baja Boy says, here to watch you condone theft. I don't condone theft. I don't condone it when Rick Scott did it, or Donald Trump did it, or Eric Trump did it, or Don Jr. did it. Daniel says, what are your thoughts on the Democratic cities not wanting voter ID to be required? Fishy. No, so voter ID is strictly a voter suppression tactic. It is completely unnecessary. We already have redundant checks on people trying to vote, and we're very good at catching voter fraud. And we actually have audio of Republican politicians admitting that this is what they are doing. They said voter ID is going to win us Pennsylvania, which, by the way, they didn't. But, that's basically them saying, like, we don't give a shit about finding fraud. We just want to win elections. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions about that. About that. Who asked that? Daniel. Let me know if you have any questions about that, Daniel. Okay, let's see here. The Truth Teller Official says, thoughts on JFK? Seemed like a pretty good president. El Predictor says, is it bad for Latinos and if the Somalis are now getting exposed? I don't really care for these hypotheticals that pit like different minorities against each other. Baja Boy says, voter ID would stop Democrat fraud. Congratulations, Baja Boy. You are not asking questions, so you're out of here. It's funny that your name is Baja Boy because Baja, California is where I had sex with your mom. The Fixer Mike, great to see you again, says the most recent and egregious voter fraud / double voting findings are all MAGA. That is accurate, the Fixer Mike. Jay Ray says, how do you know someone is a citizen if they don't show ID? Because we match them with the voter rolls beforehand. So basically, you have to register to vote in order to vote. And when you register, your registration information is checked against your social security number and other information that the state has on you already. So there's no need for an ID if we're already double and triple checking whether or not you're a citizen. David Douglas says, Amy Bach was the lady convicted 3 years ago. So yeah, the ringleader has been in jail for 3 years. She was arrested 3 years ago. And Republicans are just making hay about this now because, again, they think it's politically damaging to Democrats. Okay, let's see here. Poop Man says, do you think SeaWorld should be forced to close by the federal government? I don't know if they have to be closed, but I do think that they should treat their animals humanely. I don't know if there's a way to do that with, killer whales and seals and shit like that. And so if the answer is no, then yeah, shut them down. Tacos for Everyone says, how does the human replacement rate drive the Russia-Ukraine war? I suppose an argument could be made that Russia is stealing people from Ukraine. Like, they're stealing children. Like, we know that is a thing that's happening over there. I don't know if it's the main motivation, but it does seem like it is maybe part of it. Saint Monkey says, no more Orca shows. I'm down for that. 312MQ says, did you see the video on YouTube by Nick Shirley? I have seen it, and I have also seen that it was debunked. Like, time and time again, it has been debunked. So the fact that everybody's hyping up this Nick Shirley guy just means that we got a new Republican grifter has entered the chat. Average Joe over on Twitch says, socialism is using democratic processes to achieve wealth distribution and collective ownership while still allowing private property, meaning capitalist economics still create opportunities to accumulate wealth. Communism is a communal ownership of everything, meaning owning businesses and private property wouldn't happen. That's interesting, Average Joe. I think what we're talking about here, though, is different scales of the same idea. So, like, I am for incentivizing companies to be employee-owned. And is that communism? I think so. But based on your definition, it's not, because it would have to be communal ownership of everything. So everybody would have to own Publix grocery stores and Bob's Short Mill and stuff like that. So yeah, is where on the scale of communism do these ideas live? Is it inherent in the definition that every communist precept is it has to be the maximalist version, like everybody owns everything? Or can communism be Publix grocery stores, Bob's Red Mills? You know, could communism just be having workers of every level represented on a company's board of directors? Could it be just that? I like to think so. I like to think of these things on a scale as opposed to being, 100% one thing or the other. Oh, good day to you, Scotty Mac. Tacos for Everyone says replacement rate is 1.6 to maintain current population levels. Russia is 1.2. I mean, population decline is a concern everywhere. Tacos for Everyone says, meaning they will run out of replacement males 1835 in 8 to 10 years, forcing war now. Yeah, again, it's a possibility. Again, I don't think it's the main motivation. J. Ray says, what are your thoughts on abortion and what is the timeline or end point for voluntary? I'm pro-choice, and so I believe that the abortion laws that we had during the Roe versus Wade era were the ones that were working the best. And that was that women were allowed to get abortions up to the moment of viability, meaning as soon as the fetus could survive outside of the womb, it was no longer legal for an abortion to happen. My wife is currently pregnant, and looking at the way that the timeline of that it's a pretty good window for being able to discover that you are pregnant, and so I think that's completely fair. Okay, Skater Day says Israel is just being excused for war crimes for no reason. Not by me. Brian Nagy says, do you think Pam Bondi will be held in contempt of Congress? I think so. I mean, it really seems like Republicans are on board with holding Trump and his team accountable for this, e-files. Jay Ray says, do you believe fathers should have the same rights and financial responsibility to that same viability? That's a little more in the weeds than I know how to talk about, Jay Ray. So I would need to learn a little bit more about that topic in order to comment on it in a way that would not just be me, talking out of my ass. Bert's, good to see you again, says, what do you think of Ilhan Omar now that she has been exposed for corruption? She hasn't been exposed for corruption. Bert's, are you referring to the Somali, Minnesota daycare scandal thing? Because again, that was perpetuated by a white lady who was arrested for it 3 years ago. And all of the talk about this being the fault of to the CBS interview. Yeah, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. Did this just happen today or something? Because the only thing that I have seen on this is right-wing media trying to blame Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar for a scandal that was done by a white lady who was already in jail for it. But let me know. Jay Ray says, if a woman has the voluntary right to avoid motherhood, should the father also have that right? I think that there's a difference in the fact that fathers don't need to carry a pregnancy to term. And, with my wife being pregnant and all, I am seeing firsthand how difficult pregnancy is and how barbaric it is to force a woman who does not want to go through that to go through with it. A guy could dip if he doesn't want to be a dad. He could leave. Women don't have that, women don't have that privilege, unfortunately. Sleepless says, not in our lifetime, but do you think we're heading for Star Trek or Futurama? I mean, when you talk to people who work in various industries, they will always tell you that the comedies are the ones that are more accurate. And so, if you talk to people in politics, they don't tell you that West Wing is what it's like. They tell you that Veep is what it's like. And so, unfortunately, I think we're looking at Futurama. Bert says, oh, sorry about the confusion. No worries, my guy. I got nothing but love for you. Wouldn't you like to know? Says, amazing take. Thank you. J Ray says, but women can abort for any reason, not just the physical issue. Yeah, J Ray, I'm not really sure what that is in relation to. Tommy Coda says, to South Park. I don't know what that means. Flog Sauce, great to see you again. Says, is the regime moving faster or slower than you thought it was? This is going to be kind of a cop-out answer, but I think it's both. Like, I was shocked and surprised by the things that Doge did. But I was also shocked and surprised that, there were not tanks in the street during the elections that happened in November that Democrats did really well on. I was shocked and surprised at the speed with which Donald Trump destroyed the East Wing of the White House. The fact that he is taking in, money from a cryptocurrency and accepting, massive gifts from, foreign nationals and building concentration camps and deporting people without due process. But I'm also like, oh, Ilhan Omar hasn't been arrested yet. AOC hasn't been arrested yet. So in certain ways, they're going slow, and in certain ways, they're really going for it. Badger75 says we are headed to idiocracy. I mean, an argument could be made that we are there already. Aiden Cowell says Republican. I'm a Democrat. Maddie says building concentration camps. Would you like to challenge me on that, Maddie? Because I'm happy to engage with you on that. A nice way to ask that question, Maddie, would be like, do you really think that Alligator Alcatraz is as bad as a concentration camp, instead of doing the quotation marks? Stephen Walton says American politics shows are just watered down imitations of British counterparts' House of Cards. Veep, The Thick of It, best examples. Oh, I haven't seen The Thick of It. I loved Veep. If Veep is a watered down version of The Thick of It, I cannot fucking wait to watch it. Aiden Call says thoughts on Trump. Trump is one of the biggest pieces of shit to ever have lived. He is massively corrupt. He is a compulsive liar, con man. He has wrought untold harm on people all over the globe. And it is just for his own ego and pocketbook that he has done this. I think that his association with that guy who has the island and the plane that we're all fighting about getting those files out, I think it really tracks with his personality, and also is another indictment of him as a human being. Terrible, corrupt, liar, shitty president, harmful, cannot say enough negative things about him. Stephen Watton says, Armando Iannucci wrote and created The Thick of It first, then Veep. Oh, so same creator. That's pretty cool. J. Ray says, do you think he's exponentially more corrupt than your average politician? Oh, yes, J. Ray. Absolutely, 100%, without question. Just the crypto coin by itself is the most corrupt thing that a president has ever done in the history of America. The amount of money that he has received through that, dark money, from people who we will never know who gave it to him. We will never know what favors he did in exchange for that. We know that he is selling pardons to people. No politician in American history has done that level of corruption. It is stunning, J. Ray. It is stunning. And, I know that we come on, we're different sides of the political spectrum here. I know that you're kind of arguing against my pro-choice beliefs, but I beg you to do research on this. Whatever sources you trust that you can get information on this. This is, oh, you're pro-choice. Oh, then why were you arguing with me about this stuff, my guy? That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, do you buy it? Do you buy that every politician is as corrupt as Donald Trump? Like, I'm really sincerely curious, because, like, I think this is the most obvious example of Trump being a shitty person and president, and just like so much worse than every other politician. The goal of corrupt politicians is for you to think that everybody is just as corrupt as they are. And that is just a fucking massive lie. So let me know, J. Ray, if you're on board, if you're picking up what I'm putting down here. Maddie says, don't both Democrats and Republicans have presidents or previous who have been to the island? Potentially, Maddie, but I don't believe that. This is not a team sport. We're not voting on which political party has had more PDFs in it, than the other. It's not a game. It is find the PDFs and put them in jail or remove them from political power, regardless of which party they are in. Aiden Call says, what is your take on Israel? I think that the people that are living there are just regular people who are trying to live their lives, so they shouldn't be forced to leave. But it is clear that the Netanyahu government has perpetuated war crimes and genocide against the people of Palestine. We should not be sending them any more money and weapons because we already have a law that says we are not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to send money and weapons to countries that are doing that. JRA says, yeah, I think Trump is more upfront, more blatantly corrupt. And it's not just the blatantness, though, JRA, and I would love to convince you of this. It is the scale. He has become so unbelievably wealthy from the presidency in a way that no president in modern history has even come close, in a way that no politician has ever come close. You know, you want to talk about Rick Scott's stock portfolio or Ted Cruz's stock portfolio or even Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio. That shit does not even scratch the surface of how unbelievably corrupt Donald Trump is. Alrighty, let's see here. Ghostface, I was trying to get into the gun control shit with you, man, and then you dipped. What's going on? Are you still here? CS says, how does MAGA not see the corruption from their leader? It's wild. I think we got our answer here with my friend Jay Ray. Not casting any aspersions, my guy. But the idea that everybody is equally corrupt is what corrupt people want. You know, the idea that both parties are the same, the idea that every politician is a liar and steals taxpayer dollars, it eliminates the idea that we can have better, and so it excuses their behavior. Alrighty, Ghostface says, how old do you have to be to request? Do you mean like request a multi-guest? I have no idea. I think Trump is more of a nationalist than an actual Republican or a conservative. Maybe. I don't really truck with, semantic arguments. So it's like, you can make the argument. I don't really need to die on that mountain or anything. Sleepless says, is it wrong I only started despising Trump during his handling of the Panini during his first term? I don't think so, Sleepless. There are a lot of different ways that you can kind of chop up the American public, and one of them is based on how like keyed into politics a person is. So maybe you were fine with Trump because you weren't paying attention to the news, or maybe you were fine with Trump because you liked that he was like a change candidate. There were lots of people who were Obama Trump voters, Biden Trump voters, because they just wanted somebody who wasn't part of the system. But yeah, I think however it is that your journey to figuring out that he's a piece of shit, take whatever path you need. I'm just happy that you're here, man. The water's warm. Jay Ray says, stealing is literally stealing. They set the precedent, not him. All of it is wrong, though. Oh, yeah, Jay Ray. I completely fucking agree with that. And so where is the Republican bill to make insider trading illegal that includes Donald Trump? Where is the Republican bill that says that presidents aren't allowed to have cryptocurrency? Where is the Republican bill that says presidents can't accept $400 million planes from the Qataris? Like, the Republican Party is complicit in Donald Trump's corruption. The Democratic Party, for all of their faults, they are currently trying to work with Josh Hawley to make insider trading illegal in Congress. But the same Josh Hawley who signed on to that bill also put in a caveat for Donald Trump. There's the same Josh Hawley who is completely fine with Donald Trump selling pardons for millions or billions of dollars. Alrighty, let's see here. I'm kind of jumping around here in the comments. Okay, David Douglas says, I remember Reagan taking $2 million for 2 speeches after he left office, and that was a huge scandal. Yeah, the times they are a-changing. Sleepless says, the morgue trucks really didn't need to happen, could have been avoidable, so much could have. Completely agree with that, Sleepless. Did you know about him throwing away the pandemic preparedness plan that the Obama administration gave to his team? I just wanted to see how far down the rabbit hole you've gone. Martin McClear says, if it makes you feel the Irish government is also very corrupt, that doesn't make me feel better at all. I don't like governments being corrupt, whether they are here or abroad. Alrighty. Honey says, most Israelis support Netanyahu and the G side, though. No? I do not know if that is true, Honey. The Netanyahu administration was able to hobble together a coalition by partnering with the most extreme wing of their political, system. And so there are ways in which minorities can minority voters can sort of exercise their will over the majority. We see that in America consistently. That's the reason why Republicans do so well in elections regularly, is because of things like gerrymandering and the Senate map and the Electoral College. I don't know how the political system works in Israel, but it's definitely possible that a majority of people do not want what Netanyahu is doing. Okay, Aiden calls, says, "Don't worry, I'll be president and make everyone nice again. Woohoo, vote for Aiden." Yeah, I don't think you need to make everybody nice again, but maybe you could solve income inequality and maybe, you know, rebalance the Supreme Court and the Senate map and shit like that. Alrighty. Ghostface. Ugh. Yeah. Did you hear all my stuff about? Did you hear all that stuff that I said about gun control, Ghostface? I'm really curious what you had to say about that. Yes, excuse me, Ghostface. So sorry about that. Chichi says, "Hello, Jared. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. I haven't seen you for a while." Well, I am here every weekday starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. We're starting earlier today because my wife is making me go see Avatar. J. Ray, that's a joke. I'm very excited about going. J. Ray says, "Do you believe in term limits for Senate and Congress?" Yes, 100%. I don't really care what the limit is or about their pensions. I'm for pensions in general. Like, I like the idea of people being able to, support themselves after retirement. But I don't need to get into the weeds on that. All right, Aiden, Happy New Year to you as well. David Douglas says age limits at the very least. Yeah, I'm on board with that as well. Why don't we make it 70 or 75 or something? That seems pretty good. Okay, Average Joe says basically communism means that since everyone owns everything, everyone has an equal claim to the property or services, meaning every aspect of society gets distributed equally, from food to living spaces. Also, since everyone has an equal claim to everything, that includes the economy, and since everyone's financial compensation would be equally distributed, there would be no need for interstate economics. I mean, again, Average Joe, I think that's very interesting. I don't know if everybody would agree with you that the definition of communism is that so like totalitarian. That's, what do you think of my personal belief that communism can just be incentivizing companies to be employee owned, or having a law that says that the lowest paid employees need to have a voice on the board of directors for massive corporations? Do you think that is inaccurate? Do you think that it is not productive for me to hold that belief or push that definition? Let me know. Muzz King, Saint Monkey, and Truska, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. All right, now we are on to finger hearts. Everybody's favorite finger hearts. Here we go. Okay, Ghostface says communism is like socialism, not really totalitarianism. I mean, again, that's how I think about it too. Ghostface, I keep on asking you about the Second Amendment shit that you talked about earlier. Why aren't you responding, my guy? 312 says, "Are you gonna watch it in 3D?" You're damn right, 3D IMAX. Rizzo says, "You leftists couldn't get enough of Trump when he spent his entire life as a Democrat." Oh no, I've been hating Trump for a long time, man. I hated Trump long before he entered politics. J. Ree says, "The weeds are where you actually discuss beliefs versus the surface level." I would agree with you, J. Ray, but I think that there are way too many people out there who believe things that are detrimental to us even getting to that place. I say, could we maybe have, mandatory insurance for gun ownership? And your question is, well, how much should people be charged for that insurance? How much should it cost? But meanwhile, there are 1,000 million people out there who are going to argue that me saying gun owners should have insurance is equal to shitting on the Second Amendment and taking everybody's guns and totalitarianism and Russia and Nazi Germany. So, yeah, I do think there's value to that kind of wonkish discussion. But before we get there, I think we need everybody on the same page, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to corral everybody into this one bucket of, can we at least agree on what's going on in the world? Can we at least agree who's a piece of shit and who's not a piece of shit? Can we at least agree that better is better and worse is worse? Once we get there, then maybe we can start debating or discussing, exactly what the age should be, or exactly what the term limit should be, or exactly how much their pension should be, and stuff like that. Okay, TJ Spriggs says, what would happen if we privatized Social Security, put in index funds? It's a good question. It's a really good question, TJ, and I'm not fully prepared to answer it. I'm kind of working it out on the fly. I suppose the issue with privatizing Social Security would be that in the event of some sort of market calamity like 2008, then the people who would be retiring around that age might be fucked out of having, their Social Security payments. Potentially not. Potentially, any financial crash could be mild enough in the long term where nobody's funds could get wiped out before they would need to do it. The other concern with privatization is the profit motive. Like, how much money are we going to be losing for whoever is managing that money? That is what we see with privatizing health insurance. That is what we see with housing, with college. Basically, everything that is way more expensive now is generally the fault of the profit motive and needing the CEO needing to have a fifth golden yacht and shit like that. Alrighty, let's see here. Dan Blackwood says, what happens if we privatize Social Security? Has anyone seen the movie? You got me again, Dan. You got me again. I ask you sincerely because I haven't seen that movie in a while. Is that actually part of the lore of Soylent Green, or is that just? Did you really just have a fucking hilarious and hyperbolic fucking bullseye of a bit right there? Let me know, Dan Blackroyd. David Parasticos is 100% true. Greed at the top is the core problem. Everything suffers is a result of that. Dan Blackburn says, I'm not joking. So that's part of the lore of Soylent Green? Really? I didn't know that. That's fascinating. I gotta rewatch that movie. That movie kicks ass. Okay, where are we at now? All right, we got about 10 minutes left on the live stream, everybody. 10 minutes left on the live stream. Okay, let's see here. Scrolling up. David Persicos says, lots of type, lol, but I could give you the long version in messages alternatively, says David. Do you mind if I join to ask you some of the things that you messaged about? Oh, yeah, David, absolutely. David, Dan says, no, I mean, it's a logical precursor to that. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, man, 100%. Let's see here. What political party does a leopard affiliate with? I have no idea. Is that a joke? It sounds like one of those kid jokes. 312 says you should go longer for the end of the year. No, my wife and I got plans. We got good plans that I'm excited about. Okay, so yeah, David, you still here? Have you requested on the multi-guest? Still waiting for Ghostface to let me know about his whole, what do you call it? Yeah, do you know how to request, David? You don't know how to do that. Let's see here. Let's see if I can figure it out for you. Can I invite? Where are you? David. All right, I got you. Hey, David, what's going on, man?
How's it going, Jared?
It's going pretty good.
So, I appreciate you being, so responsive to the message I sent you, because I do want to, have some discourse and see what other people think about.
You playing slots,
capitalism.
My guy? You playing slots? What the hell was that noise?
No, I don't know. That was a gift that somebody sent.
Gotcha. All right, man. Yeah, what's going on?
But anyways, so you said it's not an effective regulator of a way to shop. Go to the ER, right? You can't shop for the ER.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but to me, that's a fringe case of the free market system, in essence, because that is an emergency, unforeseen event. You know what I mean? That we should have the structural foundation and the monetary fiscal and legislative policies in place as a country already, so that like an ER visit, you don't have to care about whether you can price shop for an ER visit, because the money that you save and the capital that you build and the wealth that is growing in the pockets of consumers is growing to where it doesn't matter, because the other part of the free market works so well. You know what I mean? So I don't think that example of the fact that you can't price shop an ER is necessarily a detriment to the entire free market system. And
no. Let me pause you there for a second, man, because there's sort of like a scale here for what it means, what capitalism means.
I can't hear you.
Oh, let me try something real quick. All right, can you hear me now, my guy? Can everybody hear me now? David says he can't hear me. Can anybody hear me? Are you the only one, David, who can't hear me? Flocksauce says, any shows coming up? I actually do. Oh, okay, now you can. All right, so yeah, I think I just needed to mute you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, there's different scales for what it means to be capitalism, what it means to be free market.
And we're not a pure capitalist market, right? Like, in essence, if we were purely capital, there's so many different economic philosophies baked into our country as it is right now in practice.
Yeah.
No matter what you call it, it's not pure capitalism.
Yeah, 100%. So, the general argument that I would make, though, is that capitalism is currently making the argument that having privatized healthcare is better than having universal healthcare. And I am saying we are looking at that not working. We are seeing it not working. And not being able to price shop for an ER visit is like one example of that not working. But
you're 100% right.
Yeah,
I also believe that we could achieve a feasible, universal health care system at scale if we rebalance some of what we're spending on other things, right? And I'm sure everybody would agree with that. The problem is, does it work in practice at scale efficiently for people, where people don't die because they're waiting now 10 hours for an ER visit?
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So you have to scale that. And yes, government should take care of that issue, right? If they're going to be using all these billions and trillions of dollars on other things that don't really help their citizens or improve the nominal value or benefit to their constituents' life on an everyday basis. You know what I mean? So yes, I do also, like, I'm what you could say, like, I've talked mostly fiscal policy with you, obviously, but like politically as a whole, like, yes, I'm pretty like center right, center left with some things. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I do agree. Yes, I'm a big proponent of what capital is able to do as an engine to lift people out of poverty. I mean, the statistics speak for itself, Jared. Under any economic system, right? Capitalism has lifted the percentage of people under their governance out of poverty historically. The economic system that does that is capitalism, and it's not even close.
I can all right.
Send you the information on that,
David. I'm gonna. You are welcome, David. Wait, David. All right, you're welcome to come back on a different live stream. I'm gonna respond to that. I'm gonna get back into my comments. I appreciate you being here, but I just don't want this to devolve into a debate. All right, my guy.
No, you're good. Like, I just something I wanted you to think about, because
of course, absolutely, man.
I'm more of I wanted to see what your idea of a blended economic system looks like, and what government should and shouldn't be spending their money on, and what regulations that are already in place that limit the authority of the free market to operate in a malicious way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. All right, I'm gonna do some responses, but thanks for coming up.
All right, thanks, Jared. Have a good
one. All right, Tishy says, thank you, Jared. You're awesome. Happy New Year. Enjoy your day. Rizzo says, nobody wants substandard government-sponsored healthcare provided by the lowest bidders. I do, Rizzo, because that's not what government healthcare is. They have much better healthcare for cheaper in every other industrial country. Do you really believe that every country that has socialized healthcare is worse healthcare than what we have in America? Let me know, Rizzo. Okay, so as far as like capitalism bringing more people out of poverty than any other economic system, David, I find that statistic to be extremely sus, because what how do we define this? You know, like, is it free market capitalism if the Gilded Age saw massive income inequality? Is it free market capitalism that caused the stock market crash in what was it, 28 or something, and the stock market crash in 2008? Right now, we are seeing massive income inequality. People can't afford houses, they can't afford healthcare. Meanwhile, people are riding around on fucking, flying giant yachts, eating caviar and cocaine 3 meals a day. Like, that is not a system that is bringing people out of poverty. When I hear that statistic, David, I think, oh, they took one specific snapshot of one specific thing, and they are now touting that as the thing. But yeah, man, look around at everybody who has died because they have not been able to afford healthcare or have had to wait for their insurance premiums to kick in or something like that. I just do not buy it for 1 second that capitalism did it. Additionally, there's all this argument about like the genius and the innovation that we get through capitalism. But if you actually like scratch the surface of that claim a little bit, David, what you see is that all of this profit that we've made out of these incredible technologies and innovations all started with government-funded research. So your iPhone, GPS technology, various medicines and medical technology, like, all started with government-funded research, scientific research. Capitalism was leeching the genius off of socialism, basically. Yeah. Yeah, so that's just that's where I'm coming from, David. Let me know what you think about that. Bertz says, do you agree with the party switch theory? It's not a theory, Bertz. It is 100% accurate. When, what's his name? Lyndon B. Johnson signed, I forget what it was called, whatever, legislation, the Voting Rights Act or the Equality Act or something like that, the Civil Rights Act, something like that. He said as he signed it, there goes the South. Nixon developed the Southern strategy, basically appealing to Southern racists in order to, gain political power for the Republican Party. It is a documented historical fact. Bertz, do you not agree that that is the case? Bertz, let me know. Alrighty. All right, guys, it's 11:30. It is time for us to start wrapping up. Get your final questions in. Thank you. Bert says, I don't know about that 50-50. Interesting, Bert's. Yeah, I guess I don't know where the disconnect would be. Like, where do you think the historical retelling that I just did is inaccurate? Bert's, let me know. All right, let's see here. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. You can send gifts. You can become super fans or subscribers. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can give me $2 by using your account to subscribe to my Twitch, and it costs you $0. And that's a free way to help out the show financially. You can join my Patreon for less than $1 a month, and you can buy things from my store. Links to all of that good stuff in the bio. I just wrapped editing my stand-up special, and it is going to be coming out at the end of January 31st. I'm going to be, spamming social media with all sorts of advertisements and stuff like that. But you guys, as my live stream audience, you get to hear it first. The stand-up special is coming out January 31st. It's called I'm Worried. And I'm sure you guys will be tired of hearing me hype it up by the time January 20th or 28th comes around. Any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord channel. Discord is great because there's a great community there, and also there's recommendations for books and podcasts and excellent nonprofit organizations that every single one of you should be donating your time and money to. Let's see here. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I don't know how I'm gonna be feeling tomorrow based on my activities for today, so just we're gonna treat tomorrow as a very light TBD. Although we will most likely still be streaming tomorrow. But yeah, schedule is regularly updated on my TikTok, on my Twitch, and on my personal website. And just lastly, I hope that you guys are all doing the work out there. If you are somebody who Rizzo says government can't even run a DMV, you really trust them with your health care? How naive of you! I mean, it's a little condescending the way that you phrase that, Rizzo, don't you think? Maybe you want to take the temperature down a little bit if you want to, continue to be a guest on my live streams. So yeah, you don't like the DMV, but I like paved roads and public education and the military and the fire department and the post office. The government does a lot of things really good, but maybe it's just that we have been devaluing them by continuing to vote for Republicans who are constantly turning the screws and removing funding for those organizations. I believe that the government can run a better DMV, and David Douglas's DMV works just fine in Jackson, Florida. So, there's some counter examples there for you, Rizzo. So yeah, let's not take the government for granted just because you had to wait extra time at the DMV once. All right, everybody, do the work. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.